Hello and welcome to L&D Done Right, presented to you by CD2 Learning. I'm your host, Gill Williams. But as always, I am not the star of the show. That is the guest that we bring on so that you listeners can listen and learn from their experiences and what they do with their teams. Today, I am joined by a fun one. I'm joined by Hugh Rumbaugh. He's going to talk to us a little bit about what he's doing with his team at Transparent BPO. Hugh, why don't you tell everyone hello?
Hey, thanks, Gill. I appreciate it. Yeah, hi, this is Hugh Rumbaugh, the Director of Digital Learning here at Transparent BPO. We are a outsourced contact center, and we're doing some really innovative things here in the learning and development organization.
Yeah, we've had a few conversations around what you're doing, Hugh, and what spurred me, as I was just mentioning offline, the exact reason why we wanted to have you on, so we could talk a little bit about those fun and unique things. But before we do, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like to do? I see a football in your background. I see some trophies. Got to hear the backstory before you got into learning and development, right?
Yeah, so personally, outside of work, I am interested in quite a few activities. The NFL football over there is from the alumni clays for kids sport, sports shooting, if you will. So
Yeah.
we do some sporting clays, we do some different things as a family. I am very much into what I call board sports. So if it's wakeboard, skateboard, snowboard, I'm kind of your guy. And then we are a motocross family. My youngest races, and I'll just say that I still ride. So as my youngest would say, I look pro but still go slow. So
we used to call that, and I played college golf. We used to call that having all the gear but no idea what to do with it, right?
Absolutely. There you go. Yeah.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Well, that's we love learning a little bit about backstories, right? And how you get to where you're at, because in learning and development, what I've learned from my own personal experience is every single person that gets into this space has their own history of why it's important, why they find their work important, and helping people develop and changing people's lives. So that being said, why don't you walk us through really how you got into your position, where you started, how'd you find your way into, people development, learning and development for your organization?
Thanks. Gil, I think that I go the whole way back to my childhood, right? I grew up in a family with two parents that were teachers, and I found myself always learning, from them or from, something that they were doing. And I just think it inherently ingrained itself early. But from a career perspective, I started at Verizon. At the time, it was Verizon Wireless, and I was a classroom trainer before, online digital training. I'm dating myself a bit, but I grew up in digital learning, and I remember the first time that I saw the new Droid phone release came out, and we had this online training, and I was instantly grabbed by this scenario. And I remember telling my manager at the time, I said, I want to be that. And she's like, you want to be an online learning? And I'm like, no, somebody made that. I want to learn how to create that. And this is back in the time when we would still hard code SCORM and create in Flash and do all types of really interesting things that don't happen today. But I grew up through the space and place, as instructional design was starting to blow up. I really came up through the ranks with that. And I think it was really interesting to me. What grabbed me the most for online learning is that, I could hold as many classroom learning events as I wanted, or I could have as many virtual instructor-led training events as I wanted. But digital learning works 24/7, and I can broadcast to an audience of millions if I want to. So for me, it was instantaneous, the gravity and the amount of coverage that could occur from a really well-designed event. So it was pretty early on. And I spent probably about 7 years over there. I was, iPhone launch was my thing for like 4 or 5 years over there. So every year I would, lose my life for like 90 days and work on iPhone launch for our entire company. but I had an opportunity to move with them to Ohio, New Jersey, or Atlanta, and I just didn't see that as an opportunity. So I ended up severing time with Verizon. And I remember telling my wife, I said, I'm going to take some time off and really just, calm down. And 3 weeks later, I was accepting a position at another company called Denali, which is a Carnegie Mellon University startup in the procurement space. And I didn't know anything about procurement. So that was going to be fun and interesting. And so I went over there as an instructional designer and their LXP admin. And it turned out to be one of the best journeys where I got to work for multiple clients. And I know I'm on NDAs with some of them. So I'll just say, like, hey, I was at the largest coffee provider of the world, and I was at the largest athletic footwear shoe company of the world. And I was at the largest
Wow.
social media company in the world, and I got to work projects for them for like 6 months, 3 months, depending on the item, and see how they look at L&D and see what's, how do they apply it. And I'll tell you that was really cool, being able to consult and go into different companies and implement a learning and development for procurement for their entire global procurement operation was really, really impactful. And then honestly, the phone rang one day. Gentleman had a conversation with me about a BPO company, which I wasn't really familiar with BPO. And they wanted to create this online university. And I'm like, never heard it done that way, but I'll take the call. And met with the CEO and the president over there, and they explained what they wanted to do. And I also said the same thing. I said, well, it's never been done like that. Let's, just so you're aware. And I'll tell you what, Scott Newman, our CEO, his vision, that's what made me jump ship, right? That's how I ended up at Transparent BPO, and that's how I ended up as the director of digital learning. He had this vision for this incredible career path of online learning for his entire employee base that creates a better life for them. It's not just learning about direct corporate initiatives. This is about teaching people how to handle their money, how to take care of themselves mentally, how to physically take care of yourself. It really picks up where a lot of international schools leave off, or sets the foundation to move forward from a place and space for all of our employees. So it's a really exciting online university. I'm sure listeners hear that and they go, oh, another online university. When I get into the metric and details, I think you'll continue listening to this podcast.
Well, we will get there in a moment, but I want to take a second and talk about you highlighted a little bit of being injected into a few different organizations and being able to implement learning strategies at those, right? How impactful was being able to see in really quick environments of, hey, here's learn by fire hose of what this organization's all about. How do we build a strategy around this? And then you're pivoting and you're taking I'm guessing, I'd love to learn and what you did to say, okay, what did I learn from that? And how do I implement it here? What did I learn from that? How do I implement it here? Walk us through that process for yourself, right?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm very much Socratic in my methodology, and more so with my stakeholders and the business itself. Like, why? Well, why do you do it that way? Why do you do it that way? Why? A lot of whys. People that meet me and I'm investigating what they're doing to try and create learning and development, they either love that style or I really have to change quick. But I ask a lot of questions and I want to understand things, in total complexity. I think that my previous entrepreneurial lifestyle prior to Verizon allows me to meet business leaders and business owners very quickly and make a connection. We have a couple businesses outside of what I do professionally, and my wife manages quite a few things, and I think it's just having that keen aptitude and business insight to know, what are the questions I would ask if I owned this business, right? If I owned Transparent BPO, what would I do? Or if I owned, gillwilliams.com, right? What would I do? How would I make this the best business it can be? And I think that there's just a mindset that comes with that, and it comes through experience. You named the fact that you would have to pivot for organizations, and I have to say it starts with humans. Reading the room and reading people is very important. I believe that it's one of the most undervalued skills when you're starting to collaborate with stakeholders or project requesters. You need to understand them, their wants, their needs, their fears, their joys, everything. You have to have a total picture of your stakeholder before you can really get onto a level playing field with them to discuss and have meaningful interactions to build competencies and learning objectives and all the fun stuff that comes through that. So that's really the way I think about things in my approach. I also like to do a lot of research. I will go down that rabbit hole, as they say, right? Like, so, hey, you have this super successful company. Great. What's your Glassdoor negative reviews, right? And why? Right. So why, right? I want to see. They always say the truth is somewhere, but his, hers, and the truth, right? Somewhere in the middle is the truth, right? And so I end up spending quite a bit of time in very unique ways of doing a lot of cyber sleuthing around companies, products, solutions, businesses, and people. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely. You touched on something there of understanding the why behind things, but also understanding the motivations of stakeholders. One of the big things that when I'm in conversations with people in the L&D space, both from successful organizations who do it really well or people who are just getting started, one of the hardest things that those individuals come across is getting that stakeholder buy-in, right? Is gaining that trust of this is something we have to focus on. And listeners have probably heard me say this a million times, is that we're in this kind of chasm of a generational shift, right? From paycheck is good to, hey, no, I'm demanding you develop, to it's just expected now. I think you at Transparent BPO, what you've described to me, that vision and what you deliver is taking it even to a different level, right? Which I'd love to get into, but talk to me a little bit about what you saw with those organizations that you got injected into. And then even what's really cool about Transparent is the initiative was driven by the CEO. We don't see that very often, right? And so how would you advise listeners to go about gaining that leadership buy-in, right? And then what have you seen to take that a step further, to get into the details of why leadership should pay attention to these strategies and buy into these sorts of strategies?
I think I come back to reading people, right? I really think there's two types of people. You have your visionary who can dream it up and see it, and the reality is that we're not there yet, or we can't get there, this year or next year. And then there's the realists who, hey, we want to at least move the needle, right? We want to, turn the motor another 1,000 RPMs, let's move faster, right? And what I tend to find is that depending on which stakeholder you're dealing with, your visionaries, you have to show expertise very quickly, and you have to show, mock-ups and different project points along the way, things that are broken. You really have to get into the details and the niche of what's not working. They for some reason they gravitate towards that. And I find that the realists, the people that are really trying to accomplish something, they get that there's going to be problems. They just, they go, okay, well, how can we solve that? It's just a different, because visionary people tend to have this, Garden of Eden moment in their mind, and it's all just going to be bliss and everything's going to be great and the birds are chirping. And the reality of business is it's ugly. There's a lot of businesses that look great, shiny webpage, all that stuff, and they have a lot of problems.
Under the hood, there's a lot of duct tape, right?
Man, I could think of several. Like, I've been around doing this for a while. I go, there's one that came to mind as soon as we started talking, right? And I'm not going to name names. You go, well, okay, how do we solve those things? And how do we dig in? And do we have the right people to solve that problem? It really comes back to people. I know at some point we'll probably talk artificial intelligence, but we're at this amazing corner, crossroads, if you will, where artificial intelligence is being injected, and all these people are going to lose their job. And yeah, I think there's going to be some displacement, but I think that it's going to create other opportunities. I follow it really closely, but I do think that at the end of the day, I don't know that we can truly replace people with some sort of machine or artificial intelligence. Like I said earlier, reading your stakeholders and reading the room, it's not always, an easy thing to train artificial intelligence to do.
Yeah. I think the coolest or the best way that someone's explained it to me recently is AI isn't necessarily going to replace everyone's jobs. The question becomes is it not, am I going to lose my job, but how efficient can I be at my job with these tools? Right. And I
Yeah.
think that that's the way the best organizations I've talked to are thinking about it. It's not how many jobs can we eliminate with this technology? It's no, how efficient can we be with the same people in these roles?
We are currently users, so I can go into that, or we can wait. But yeah, I've already looked at, okay, how is AI? We have licensing. We're doing some things. It's pretty cool. And I think you're right. I think it's spot on. It's about efficiency and competency, getting correct information faster. It's really, really amazing stuff. It really is. Hey, write me a script for 3 people on a video, and
Yeah.
you know, on this topic, and I need it to be 3.3 minutes and 10 seconds long. Boom, there goes the script, right in front of you. It's written. And you can take that and you can edit it and you can brand it. You could, a ton of things you can do. Still have to interact with it. We're not in a place of perfection where I could say, write me a script for Transparent BPO, contact center work for chat for this client, that,
Yeah.
XYZ problem. And here's the 310 that solves all the things you just asked for. We're not there yet. But it's a really unique place to be right now. I do think of it as this is almost like another internet explosion, if you will.
Well, while we're there, I think that's a good pivot into emerging technologies, and it'll also ties into a little bit of effectiveness of training programs, right? So I definitely want to make sure we're hitting on the two areas I really enjoyed speaking with you about is how you're thinking about learning and development differently, broader than just standard job skill training, right? What you're looking at from a broader perspective and tying technology into that, and then how the broader perspective technology ends up turning into those metrics that you're aiming for, and really being able to show the effectiveness and success of a learning program. Let's make sure we hit on those for the listeners today too.
Yeah. So emerging technologies, this gets really interesting. It's a very interesting time to be alive.
Hmm.
Today, we are an end user to speed of development and different outcomes for things like Chat GPT, et cetera, right? And the future state that we're visionary and dreaming of is individual session interactions for competency, right? So if I have someone who thinks they really know their stuff, we can put them into an AI environment that would then quiz, check, post out, give feedback, total 360 package. I think that's going to take some
Hmm.
time. I really find, spending a lot of time in the market right now, in R&D for LTO, right? LTO being learning technology operations, is probably the most important part of the time that I spend at work. There are so many solutions that not only there's so many solutions, but if you choose a solution, that solution itself it just seems like everybody's evolving so fast, right? And I don't know if I can name names, or this isn't a sales thing, but we picked up a software package from a company that's very well known in the project management space for L&D, and
Hmm.
I'm just watching how fast that's evolving, and someone on my team that's managing that, and how many changes and reports I get from him about, hey, these 6 things changed and they're going to change these 8 next month. And it's like, this one item is evolving, so fast for even just our L&D team, let alone the business and other things that are happening. There's a pretty well-known software package out there that creates online, courses through scoring packages, etc. They just launched their first LMS, and it's a really unique situation where
What programs are you talking about?
okay, so the first one's Cognota. Cognota is the one that we're handling for managing our if you will, projects, right? So if you came to me and said, hey, I have a learning and development need, we have this way that we manage our entire project to get to an ROI output for, that project. And it's a really, really,
Wonderful.
really interesting software. Yeah. And then the other one's like Articulate. So Articulate just came out with Reach. And Reach, what's really interesting, I'm like, yeah, I'll sign up for a free license. I'll sandbox anything. I'll test anything, right? And I went from my published tool to a review tool to an LMS to learner. I mean, seamless, fast, incredible. Won't scale today, right? Won't work for the organization today. Again, they're just dipping their toe into the pond, but impressive, right? Interesting. And I know, Gill, that you're in that space and you see those things. And I know, kind of watching, as things evolve, it's incredible. These companies and these systems, it's just incredible how fast. And that's why I say spending a lot of time in R&D as the director of basically LTO over here. I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible time to be an L&D.
Sure. I think that what's really been fun, CD2, who I work with, we're in the L&D space, we're in the learning management system spaces, but also content management systems as well. What's really fun to be a part of is, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, as long as these organizations are getting the support they need, right? There's a different flavor for a different organization. There's a ton of those programs out there. And so for a lot of organizations, what you're mentioning with Reach, if someone's looking for a pure course distribution platform and that's it, what better way of doing that in an efficient manner, right? Of being able to spin something up and distribute that really smoothly. But then there's the next step of creating those individualized learning pathways, those break-off points, prescriptive, all of that, where we start to tie in just that elevated experience. There's a flavor in organizations who are looking for that too. And that's what I really enjoy about this space, is that it doesn't matter who you work with, as long as they're fixing the needs and supporting your people. And that's what we try and really live at here with CD2. But we love learning about new technologies that are out there. I mean, it only makes it better, and it makes us better at what we do too, right?
I think what's interesting about that comment, right? You're absolutely spot on. And what I would add to that is it depends on the maturity of the business, right? Like TBPO, pretty mature, small, quick solutions aren't always solutions, for what we're trying to do, where like a CD2, you guys would scale up, everything would scale up. We'd be able to get, there's reporting, there's data analytics. Hey, can we gamify it? Can we put a leaderboard? Can we, you just start adding complexity, right? So the maturity of who's leading that LTO and what company they pick on the solution,
exactly,
it's going to matter. It's such an important time. And that's why, I come back to spend. I know leaders today that come to me for questions, outside of my business. People in my LinkedIn come to me and they go, hey, I have this problem. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, here's 5 companies, because I spend time in the R&D side of understanding who's out there and what's available. It's really important to me. It's also what allows us internally as Transparent BPO as a team, our team here on the digital side, like we're as cutting edge, if not more cutting than a lot of larger organizations. And I think that that's a competitive advantage. I've created a career track internally in our team that you and I've spoken about, where I think of the organizational alignment completely different than what's out there in the marketplace today.
Absolutely.
Everybody goes, hey, we just need an e-learning developer. And I'm like, whoa, that's a terrible title and a terrible way to think of the solution, right? Do they just create e-learning? That's all they do. You don't want video. You don't want, maybe a graphics package. You just want an e-learning. You just want somebody at the basis line. Like, terrible mindset. You have to have people that have multiple competencies in the role they hold today. We tend to think of I won't even say e-learning developers. We call them digital developers. Our digital developers, you name a tool, they're able to pick it up and roll. We just did some augmented reality here recently with the team to upskill. I mean, we are on the cutting edge, not bleeding, but definitely cutting.
Yeah. So walk me through that. Where do you find AR, VR, and AI are tying into the future of online learning? Because we're exploring that with a number of really fun clients as well. And we're making what we believe is a really exciting headway in those spaces, because with AR already implementing strategies today, VR, same thing, right? So a lot of those sort of technologies are fun to just brainstorm with your clients. Hey, what if you did this and tried it? So where do you find that those are fitting into your strategies in the future of learning and development as a whole?
Yeah, so we manage multiple clients. So we have certain clients that solution is not going to work for, right? It's just they don't have something that's kinesthetic in a sense. Because I think of, augmented reality is very helpful for certain things, maybe not as kinesthetic, but like, VR, virtual reality becomes real kinesthetic real fast, right? I had the opportunity to take a presentation where, you walk out on a steel beam as a union employee, right, to see if you can deal with heights. And boy, is that realistic. And you
Mm.
feel it real fast in the center of your soul if you could do this job. And I think
I'm
that there's
imagining those videos where they're walking out and they're really scared with that someone in the background's messing with them. That's what I'm imagining you.
yeah, it's legit. If you've not put a headset on and had the immersive experience, boy, it's something. I'm blessed with the ability that my oldest son is really into baseball and he
Okay.
likes games, right? So games and baseball and gaming. And he's like, Dad, you have to try Wind Technology, and I forget the name of the program off the top of my head, but basically it's a simulated batting experience. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. Give me the headset. I'm gonna hit home runs all day, right? And you're having a live at bat, and they can dial up any pitcher, any pitch, any speed, anything at you, and you can take that swing 100 times, and there's haptics feedback, and you know what you're doing in that swing. It's incredible, just the sports training aspect. Let alone,
Mm-hmm.
I want to teach someone in a factory how to change something safely so they don't get sucked into a machine or have a detrimental, emergency, if you will, or a safety violation. I mean, there's so many applications. When I was at the largest social media company in the world not too long ago, I had the opportunity to engage with Oculus and talk. I can't speak about them because I'm not tied in there. And I got to sit with Bosch and Porsche developers, and boy, and this is 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it was unbelievable what they're working on for a technician at Porsche to know exactly what part number in their augmented reality glasses, where the part goes, what wrench they need, what tool they needed to change. I mean, it was spot on. And I think how fast this mechanic could work because they don't have to think about decisions they're making. The machine's making decisions for them, and they're just the instrument. And there's an entire list of problem solving things that come up. It was incredible, absolutely incredible, the way that they're thinking about maintenance or MRO, things like that on a car. So
I mean, the ability to get immersive to that level in those sorts of crucial roles, you want to talk about efficiency and, well, just retention of information that you couldn't have before through reading through handbooks, or the only way you got that is years of experience, or let's just say even dial that back a little bit, weeks or months of experience. But when you start to tie that to, okay, well, what goes into getting that person experience? Well, that's probably downtime from someone teaching, right? That's downtime from any sort of, of that machine pumping out the proper amount of material or whatever it may be, right? So those are hard. When I start to talk about these things, I get a lot of the questions from an ROI perspective. And I was like, well, these are the things that you're looking for, right? Is imagine how much more efficient you could be when you don't have to pull so and so away from the machine to train the new hire to do the same thing, right? Imagine how efficient you could be when Jim, who's been running this machine for the last 25 years, leaves. Well, I have his knowledge stored in a vault that I can now pass to the next generation and the next and the next, right? And so you just don't find that same sort of longevity in employees today. And so that comes with its own inefficiencies. So um, yeah, those are the fun conversations we get to have, right? And help educate leaders.
yeah, I would say this: if you're listening to this podcast and you're really interested about what's cutting edge and what's coming out, like if you've not attended a DevLearn conference, it's in Las Vegas this year. Go check out DevLearn. You know,
Mm-hmm. We'll be there.
they,
You
I
going?
mean, Yeah, I'll be there. I mean, if you've been, it's incredible. It's funny, Tim Beery, who I forget which beverage manufacturer he works for, or bottling company. I was walking the floor and I was looking at all the different VRAR solutions, and I walked up to his and I was like, "Yep, you're gonna win." He was like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, "No, I'm dead serious. You're gonna win." I stood by Tim, and I didn't know the man. Like, I just stood by him, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna wait for your name to be called." He's like, "Again, you're nuts." Called his name. I took his photos. And like, "Hey, I'll hit you up on LinkedIn, send you the photos." Like, he was a shocked, he was shocked, but I can tell you
Yeah.
after, you know, you as a learning and development professional, as you walk and you see 130 or 150 different simulations and things, you go, "Whew, this is the one." It was so easy to identify how simplistically he did it with the efficiency in place. So, Tim, if you're listening to this, hats off to you. That was definitely a winner. And here's a little nugget for those of you that do attend DevLearn, right? So I got to see Tim's project. You know what's even cooler is when you invite Tim to a team meeting and he's able to discuss his entire development model and what he did to implement it to the folks that are implementing things for your company. And that's how
Hmm.
I think of like career development for our team, right? How can I get them to see what I'm seeing and then get answers to those types of questions? I mean, Tim was gracious enough to give us an hour of his time to come meet with the TBPO digital team,
Oh,
and
wow.
we created some solutions based off that. I mean, it's just a great, you talk about a great relationship and mentorship and good people helping each other. That's what this whole thing's about.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that goes back to even just tying into where you said, well, I don't know who I can talk about from a platform perspective. I don't care. Like, that has been the one fun thing, is that no one really cares. It's not a competition. Yeah, we're businesses, we're trying to gain, right? But at the end of the day, we're all here. Our purpose is to provide systems, services, strategies that impact the lives of the people that go through them, whether that's internal at your company or external, doesn't matter. It truly is that's our purpose, is to provide an avenue to help someone be happier. Like what your whole goal is with your new strategy for the CEO painted that picture. We're not impacting people's careers and that's it. We're not making them more productive for our organization. We're making them happier people, and that should be our purpose in every conversation we have.
Yeah, I love that, Gil. I think you're spot on. Happy and engaged employees will give you more than someone who's a detractor. I tend to I heard a metric that happy and engaged employees will give you 35% more effort, whether that's time, energy, or effort. They just tend to give more. And if we create those environments and foster the learning that needs to occur in them, boy, your retention does stay up and people do stay longer, especially if you create a career pathing, right? So
Hmm.
when you create a career pathing, all of a sudden now I have the next level or the next thing that I might want to do. Boy, that gets a whole lot more interesting in a business, especially in BPO, because a lot of people think BPO is just, stuck in a call center and there's no career, there's no path forward. Transparent is completely different from that. We're the exact opposite, in fact.
Well, on that note, walk us through the strategy that and the vision that this your CEO painted for you. How from vision towards phase one in the execution process and onward. Walk us through that. And then you've mentioned some of those key metrics, right? That
Yeah,
people should stick around and listen to. Let's talk about those too.
yeah, that's a good segue. Thanks, Gil. So, when I met with Scott, he wanted to create a university that an employee could take after a certain amount of time of employment, right? So I'll just pick a number, right? I'll pick the 90th day, right? So you're hired day one, you
Sure.
go through onboarding, everything else. And on the 90th day, you have the opportunity to be enrolled into a university. And so that automatically happens. And you get into this university. What's interesting, our university is completed outside of working hours. So this is not
Mm.
mandatory training, right? And right there, half the learners, or half the listeners go, "Oh, this is going to fail," right? And that was kind of the same mindset I had. I'm like, "Wait, we're going to do what?" So they take level one outside of their working hours, and in level one, we've created direct competencies that they have to complete, right? And don't get me wrong, some of them are how to be better on a phone call, right? How to manage a
Okay.
phone call, sales that succeed, things like that, right? But hey, how do you handle your paycheck? Because globally, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. Do you have an emergency fund? Have you thought about your health and mental wellness? Have you thought about your career path? You know, what is your method of operation and how you run your life? And so level one touches on a lot of these things that are different competencies from a typical corporate university, if you will. We really pick up where, you know, high school may have left off for some folks, or, you know, create a foundation for those that don't have the deeper education. I have some really fun stories about employees that have emailed me about success stories of creating emergency funds, and I will share one after I explain this. But
Yeah.
so level one, they spend on average about 40 hours completing this, and if you complete level one, you do get a pay raise. So you do this outside of
Wow.
work. It's not mandatory. It's not, you know, but you get a little bit of a pay raise, and so you go, oh, okay, I'm going to make a few more dollars, and but what's more important is your completion for level one opens up a timeline to be enrolled into level two. And again, level two is going to be 40 hours of direct. And also, by the way, I forgot to mention level one, you have elective content. You know, we have, I don't know, a couple hundred hours of elective content that you can take, that you can choose, you know, like, hey, I want to start my own business. We'll train you how to do that at our business. We will train you how to open your own business at our business, right? Like, believe it or not, it's one of the best things you can do. There's a lot of people in our industry that have, you know, considered a side hustle, right? They opened up a bakery, or they have a shoe store, they have, you know, but the key there is that if they're interested in opening their own business, they have to understand business, which means then they'll understand our business. But yeah, the electives are really neat. There's some really fun electives. You know, it gets really profound in looking at what people choose. There's a few that I've put in there personally because they're from my own personal library of changing my life. And you know, I think that that's important, that we're out here, you know, making a difference in people's lives and changing their minds and their mindset. You know, we're really enabling people. So again, level one, they take it, they get a little pay raise. They jump into level two, they get a pay raise. When we start hitting level three, this is like your pre-leadership level, right? You're going to start heading into something called leadership cadet. And you, in the BPO industry, one of the biggest things they struggle with is having a bench of leadership. So who's our next in line, right? If you were to replace Hugh today, who's the next in line that could take over Hugh's job, right? And so we begin that process really early on in this career path, and we have folks that head into leadership cadet. We have another level that goes. We start getting into the leadership training itself, and there's another director that takes it from 3 forward. And she's done a fantastic job with, you know, moving up from team lead to supervisor or manager, and then, you know, operations manager. Do you want to move into operations? Do you want to move into IT? Do you want to move into HR? Hey, I want to be part of the communications team. You know, whatever it is, we've created a program called Cornerstone that allows you to figure out what cornerstone of the business you want to be in. So, you know, when you start in BPO and you think contact center, you go, oh, probably not a lot of options. Turns out that, you know, we have learners. Okay, so this is where I hit you with a metric skill, right?
All right,
So
let's go.
all right. I just told you they take this outside of working hours. Our level one engagement rate, which means they've at least started or completed training, is a little over 65%.
Wow.
Okay. Most corporate metrics we see, we were shooting for like 30, right? And I want to say, I'm sure listeners right now are like, we're at 9 or we're at 15, right? We're at 65% engagement. We're graduating somewhere between, depending on what month and, you know, what's going on in the business, around 30% of our learners are graduating month over month. And this is just level one, right? And what was shocking to me, and I guess I can throw a few other things in there, right? Like, so for those of you listening that, oh, well, what's your social score? Yes, we have surveys, we have star ratings, we're 4.8 out of 5 on courses, where, you know, you can go through all that, right? But as you look at the Kirkpatrick model and you start talking ROI and tie this back to the business, what we're starting to find out is that we're reducing attrition, you know, around 50-60% attrition drop, right? And then we're starting to see people that are moving up faster and people that are taking on more earlier. And then we launched level 2 this past fiscal year, and boy, the results were shocking. Like you're above 80% engagement and you're graduating more than 50-60% month over month. So what we're seeing is high performing employees who took the time outside of work to complete this are engaging and becoming more engaged in the work that they're doing or in the university itself. And it becomes I used this term with a case study not too long ago. I'm trying to remember exactly how I phrased it. Basically, it is a compounding interest effect, right?
Mhm.
So once we get you in the door and get you started, it turns out you're going to continue. And it turns out that not only are you going to continue, you're going to jump into the next level even faster. It takes on average about 50% less time for someone to complete level 2. But wait a second, Hugh, they're the same amount of hours of learning. Yeah, they are. But the people that made it through level 1, as soon as they got into level 2, they were in. They were planned. They know how to run their lives. It's just a completely different dynamic in there. And it's very impressive. I'm really happy that I took the position over here. It's fun to talk about.
Yeah,
It's just something that people haven't seen, and I've traveled around the United States talking about this a little bit, when and where I'm able to, and obviously this podcast is part of that. But we have some crazy, interesting results over here, and employees are just hungry for it, and they continuously come back. We have an open catalog of courses that they can also take, and we supplement that with some LinkedIn Learning licenses as they age up
sure.
through some of the bigger things. But there's a learning path and learning program for basically everyone in our company, and that's really the vision that Scott had. He has created a learning first organization here through this. It's incredible. The
I
requests
love
that we
that.
receive, yeah, the requests we receive daily are enough to make your head spin. But that's why we have things like Cognota, and we have the right team in place, and there's a process and a flow. So, but yeah, that's the big cheese today is the metrics. I don't know.
I
I
love
think they
that.
speak for themselves.
I think that, oh, well, absolutely, right? I think you said a learn first organization. That's the first time I've heard it mentioned that way or positioned that way. Typically, what I am always asking is like, hey, is this kind of a check the box compliance sort of thing? Or are you truly trying to develop a culture of learning at your organization, a culture of people wanting to grow and be developed, right? And develop into something new and better than where they're at today, right? I think that what I love hearing is that when you do hold that to a high end, a high standard, that is the and most important piece is actually supporting our people. Look what it can do for the bottom line. That's what you're talking about there with those metrics is the attrition rates. Well, there's a hard bottom line benefit to that, right? I mean, probably in an industry of yours, I bet people are like, well, 60%, that's crazy. I'm sure that traditionally in that space, you probably have over 100% retention probably, or close to it, in some of those spaces, right? And so,
Attrition, 100% attrition.
right.
Yeah, yeah. There's
And so
BPO.
making a 60%
BPO,
impact of that is a lot.
right? BPO is known for turning folks over, and I'm proud of what we've done today.
That's
Um,
amazing.
One of the fun things I'll share with you, Gil, about it is watching people in level 1. We have a keyboard proficiency. I'll say test. It's not really a test, but we've gamified it. There's like 900 different ways to learn about keyboard efficiency, right? And you see someone pass, and then you see them change their score a week later, and it went up by like 12. And then, oh, wait a second, we did it. Like, we have people who have taken the keyboard proficiency 9 times because they're trying to get to 115 words per minute. And you're just like, holy cow, like, why are you doing this? And they're like, it's just fun. I'm like, okay, it's interesting. It really is. You'd have to see it and you go, this is crazy. And by the way, I don't have a keyboard proficiency rating of 115 words per minute for what we, and it's not just typing. So I don't want to say words per minute, right? But like there's a proficiency
Yeah.
aspect to it. And I'm like, man, if I moved at that rate, like, and I'm not slow, but I'm definitely not. So we have some really high performers. It's incredible. I'm like, did they use
Yeah.
how could they have tricked this system? And then I've met with a few of them to see like, are you really that fast? And then you watch them do it and you're like, holy cow. It's incredible to watch the change in just that one small aspect.
Right. I mean, that it drives productivity and efficiency across everything they do if they're truly engaged and involved in the development process, right? how much more can we talk? It goes back to the AI piece, right? I mean, that's already being done if you're looking at it the correct way in learning and development. It's not a matter of like how efficient can we get and lean can we get as an organization if we develop them. It's no, how can we use the people we have today to just produce as much and drive our business forward, right? It's the same thing.
I really think about it is, going to the gym, right? You're going to work that muscle out and it becomes
Mm-hmm.
stronger, and then you can lift more. And I think that when we're in the lifting being can do more, right? And there's just more energy and production out of it. And I do want to tell you one other thing with this, a fun story. Like I told you, I
Yeah.
said, a fun little
Yeah,
narrative.
please
So
do.
my favorite story of an employee that finished university and gave us feedback. I get this email from an employee in an international company or an international country, and he says, "Hey Hugh, I really wanted to thank you for putting in, the financial management course that's in there about day-to-day living." And he said, "I lost my wallet this week, and um, when I lost my wallet, I normally would have spent the day looking for my wallet versus going to work, which means then I wouldn't have as much money for my family to eat or, et cetera, right?" He says, "But I took your course and I took your advice and I put money in a jar. So I had money for the bus and I had money for lunch and I went to work, which means my family's able to thrive." And then he says at the end, he says, "And by the way, I found my wallet when I came home." And I was like, when you peel that email back and you think about it, right? He came to work, which helped him financially for his family, right? He came to work, he helped our company be better and successful. And oh, by the way, our company works for other clients because we're a BPO, which means that they became better. And this ripple effect of one stone in the water was just really, really, powerful to me when I received that email. I thought it was really interesting of just one employee's feedback of how this university changed their life. Like they literally look at money and the way they manage their lives in a better facet.
Well, that'll get you out of bed in the morning.
Better than coffee.
Oh yeah. What a cool story. That's powerful. And that's really, I think that ties back beautifully about what we're all here to do and what we've talked about, right? It's more than just pushing the business forward. It's making and pushing the people that work for you and you spend every day pushing their lives forward, making them happier. What a cool way to see that in live action with what you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you. That's my one story. I have others, but we only have so much time. So
Well, we'll have to do this again. Well, to wrap things up, why don't you tell us if there's one key thing that listeners are out there in the L&D space that are looking to push their business forward or gain that buy-in? What is one little nugget of information that you'd share to the listeners out there?
um I think if you spend more time researching how you can do something versus spending the time of saying it can't be done, you will find success. I would not say that this university did not come with a plethora of challenges, some that we generally did not think we could overcome. But there are opportunities to create things and do things that you have to look at things through a different lens. And I would challenge you to continue looking through life through a different lens. That's my feedback or my nugget of advice. If you're looking at something one way today, find a different way to look at it tomorrow or in 10 minutes, honestly, the way the market's moving today.
I love it, man. What a cool way. You got to look at life through a different lens and continue to improve. On that note, I'll wrap things up. If people want to reach you, where can they reach you at, Hugh?
Best place to reach me is probably LinkedIn. Hugh Rumbaugh. Simple LinkedIn profile. I don't have a website. I don't want one. And I'm happy to help people think about solutions and things. I'm not here to sell anything, and I'm not looking for anything. I'm just genuinely happy to give back to the community that we thrive in here, learning and development.
Fantastic. Well, everyone out there, you've been listening to L&D Done Right, presented to you by CD2 Learning. I'm your host, Gill Williams. Our guest today has been Hugh Rumbaugh. Hugh, you were fantastic. Thank you so much for today.
Thanks for your time today, Gil.